Hello and welcome to Experience Recovery Conversations. Today I'm being joined by Shaun on what is quite a cold, frosty, a little bit of snowy morning here today. Shaun, tell us who you are and what you do, please.
So I'm Shaun Higgins. I'm the Director of Social and Health Outcomes for Active Tameside. So I manage a range of services that basically help the local community and basically target the most in need within Tameside.
Okay, just give us a bit of a flavour. If you were to give us a demographic profile of Tameside, what's the sort of the core messages for the people you work with?
Tameside's got around about 235,000 people in it, and it's one of the most it's in the top 20% of the most deprived areas within the UK. Okay. So
obviously
in Greater Manchester, we're one of the 10 local authorities.
Okay, so it was pretty tough before lockdown, but it must have got tougher for an awful lot of your population.
Obviously parts of the population, some of the demographics that we work with in terms of some work that we've done through lockdown in terms of disability, and our targeted groups, our Live Active in terms of GP and the ones that are on our health referral pathways. It's been really hard.
No, I bet it's very tough for an awful lot of people, this lockdown piece. It's hard, and I think this one's harder actually at the minute because there doesn't seem to be an end point for it. But let's not get into the politics and COVID, because that's not why we're here to talk. I've had the pleasure of doing some Quest assessments up there, and I've seen some of the stuff you've done around education things, but your brief is much wider than that, isn't it? So what sort of things are you responsible for?
So I've got three strands in terms of my areas of work, active education being one. So we have a range of 25 sports coaches and around 6 dance coaches that go into primary schools delivering PE curriculum, after school clubs. So we deliver into around about 61, 62 of the primary schools within Tameside. Additional to that, we have our school swimming, which is national curriculum, etc., in our pools. And then we have a bikeability in terms of, which is the old cycle proficiency, where we deliver to 50% of the population of the year 5 and 6 in Tameside. Additional, and then second strand of that is our Live Active scheme, which is our GP and one with health issues that's referred into us. We're engaging with around about 2,000 referrals a year pre-COVID. So a lot of work has been done during the COVID issue and lockdown, etc., with that cohort. And then lastly, we've got our Everybody Can. We've got our Everybody Can service, which is basically our disability, how to engage young people, etc., etc. So on that, we've got our adult social care, where we've got 278 clients that we deliver to each week. So they're currently in. So they've been in all the way through. Not that much, we just had certain criteria originally, but we've now, since October last year, we've had them all in. So they're all in bubbles of between 8 and 10. Safely, touch wood. We've had no outbreaks in service. We've had outbreaks in staff, and we've had to manage that, but we've had no outbreaks within clients, which is great, which tells us that that's in safe. We've got our youth provision within there that currently are doing outreach every night of the week in some of the most deprived areas of Tameside, seeing lots of issues, lots of problems, but obviously great that we're actually out there and still being able to engage with these young people. And then we've got our SEND in terms of our younger population. So we do community outreach support for these and families, which is a good news story in terms of COVID, from a service point of view, because that's grown. It's virtually doubled in COVID. So basically that's good for Active Tameside, but bad in a way that more and more that's 50% of additional families that have gone into crisis or going into crisis that need that support. And that includes in terms of holiday provision, etc., etc. And then we've got our special education as well, which is young people that have totally disengaged with education one way or the other, and our aim is to basically work with them, develop their life skills, but then try and feed them back into mainstream education.
All right. Wow, that is such a breadth of activity. I'm almost embarrassed, Shaun, to say that I only knew probably about 5 or 10% of that. So really, really impressive activity. I just want to go, I suppose, now into that whole piece around lockdown and education. Now, I've got a 14-year-old, she's homeschooling, absolute sport nut, loves hockey, loves tennis, just loves being competitive. But of course, she's got a dad who's bought a crazy catch, who's got a hockey stick, who's got a tennis racket, who's got all the gear, who's got a bit of space, actually, that we can take part in some form of physical activity and sport in the garden, etc. What's it been like for your teams that would have been going into schools? What have they been doing to sort of maintain physical activity of younger people?
So obviously, with key workers and schools being open to key workers, the coaches have actually gone in.
All right.
But what we've had to do, so the coaches have been going in, delivering some form of class activity. But what we've also had to do is get savvy in terms of video recording classes, and basically, so, because obviously there's been a disproportion and of some young people going in, some not. So what we try to do is like Zoom classes online with pupils in school, with the pupils that aren't school, so try and connect to them that way, which has been quite interesting. And then we've done a lot of video classes as well and put on uploaded online content. And that's basically it. We've, in terms of active education, but in terms of our special education, in the early days, we did own books, own work books, classes, etc., etc.
Okay. And have you found, you talked about being in the top 10 areas of deprivation in Greater Manchester, etc. Have you found that actually you've been surprised by the number of people who have got digital access, or have you been surprised that actually there's a lot of people who haven't got digital access?
There's been a lot around digital poverty, and I'm still having conversations now in terms of because I sit on the corporate parenting board for Tameside. I'm on a conversation on Friday around some of our care for children and care leavers that still haven't got access to digital platforms, and in this day and age, it's very, very sad, because they're missing out, it's virtually 12 months of connectivity that they've missed out on, and we're seeing it from a participation and engagement in terms of our care for children now, that it's going to take probably 2 years to get back to where we was in terms of engagement and getting them conversations going.
And how have you sort of adapted it for things like the special education needs groups that you work with and things like that? Has that stretched you even further around trying to make that digital?
It's been quite a challenge,
right?
Because obviously, it's an education process, not just for our SEND population. It's for parents to enable them to get on. So, it's been interesting. We had our first virtual Christmas party.
Right.
We did exactly the same as what we do in terms of, we normally have 250 clients attending a party. We had them all on Zoom, process, and we've got weekly Zoom community sessions now in terms of dance. So they're on Zoom, bookable sessions like they would normally, but it's just basically a virtual, so they're all dancing in their living rooms, etc., etc. So it's been quite interesting. We've had online cooking programs, healthy eating challenges, and it's been good for our staff really, because it's a different strand. It's a different strand that they've had to take up in terms of engagement and skill set. So that's been quite positive as well in terms of keeping them fresh.
Absolutely. It appears you've been incredibly agile in your approach to this. You've gone, well, this is what we would normally do. Now, how do we do this in a different way? How do we maintain our engagement? And I suppose that leads me to the crux of these conversations, which is, what will you take with you going forward? So as we come out of the pandemic and the vaccination numbers increase, etc., and we come, I don't want to where I want to go back. I want to find a better future. So what are you going to take with you that will continue to maximise the impact of what we've learned?
I think it's I think that's a good question, because I think it's going to be a blended offer moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be face-to-face. You know, when we first come out of lockdown, everyone's going to want to get that face-to-face interaction. But it's around doing things differently. You know, digital is here to stay.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's Zoom, you know, whatever it is, you know, there'll be a digital offer, and it'll be that blended offer in terms of what we do right across the piece, whether that's special education, whether it's SEND, whether it's our active education. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out, because obviously early indications when we open back up and get back to some normality in the summer, you know, there is going to be that outbreak in terms of everybody wanting that face-to-face offer.
Absolutely.
You know, because, you know, everybody strives on and craves that interaction, but I do think there will be a blended offer moving forward.
Okay. And do you think that blended offer will make you more effective? Because I've just got a view that I think there's a lot of people who are interacting, for example, with a group exercise instructor in their lounge that would never come into one of our classes. They just wouldn't. They'd feel too self-conscious. They'd feel that it's not for them. Do you think there's people that you're now interacting with that you maybe wouldn't have done prior to lockdown, because actually they can do it in the comfort of their own home? They feel safe. They feel secure.
I do think that, yeah, right. Because and it ties in with another part of the work that I'm leading on in terms of the local delivery pilot. You know, so being active in green and blue spaces, you know, I do think we are going to have to change. You know, right. I think there'll be a bit of a nervousness in terms of some clientele as well around going into gyms, pools. I don't think, you know, we've seen it during the first lifting the pool program. You know, people couldn't get in. It was rammed out. Obviously, for social distancing reduced them numbers. But I do think it's around us being creative. How can we go out into parks, deliver a fitness, you know, deliver a body pump in a park? Why can't we?
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So don't ask me how that stacks up in terms of our commerciality.
Well. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because actually I think it does stack up, because I think there's people out there that we wouldn't have had an interaction with. So, you know, if we've just got a, I don't know, $5.99 a month at home online membership, it's a membership we would never have come in. They would have never have crossed our thresholds. But I'm more interested, really, I suppose, in how some of the stuff you've done around education can be done to a wider population, because you've now got a package of plans, of homework plans, of ideas that actually, you know, you don't have to travel across a border. You can literally do it online, which must be more efficient and effective as well.
Yeah, it's obviously, you know, when, you know, what are we here for? We're here to drive down inactivity, increase people doing physical activity, and that social interaction. So it works, you know, it works. That, as you know, that should make our job easier. Definitely moving forward. Yeah. It's just the nuts and bolts, and how we target that in terms of, yes, we've got a pure commercial offer. You're always going to get your gym bunnies that want to go into the gym, you know, you're going to get that. It's them that you're not going to engage with. How can you get them? So it's like walk and natter programs, etc., etc. They during the first lifting, they were growing. You know, we were getting 20, 30 people wanting to attend, right. You know, so it's that. So again, we're doing a piece around green spaces. So how can we have an early years offer in the parks during Easter and summer, along with a young person's activity in terms of cycling, cycle pods, and then mums doing healthy nutrition. So you've got that full offer of a park, the full morning, full afternoon. So we're just, you know, and it's how we can, right, once we've got that engagement and we've got that hook, then you can start thinking about, right, well, there's more activity you can do in this centre, etc.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Do you know, Shaun, I knew this would happen. I've just looked at the clock behind you and realised we've had our 15 minutes. Thank you so much for your time. I think there's another hour and a half of this conversation to be had, but we won't do it for this time. We'll take a chance to do it some other time.
Yeah, no worries.
You take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.